right between annuet and coeptus, indicating who I think favors our undertaking, right? What it's all about. An undertaking that started in 1776 and will be completed in 2012. Again, by what the pyramid says. At that time, we will usher in the new order of the ages, Novus Ordo Seclorum. It is in you, O Lucifer, that we put our trust to help us raise your son. Again, I think it's strategic that they put "in God we trust" in capital letters. In our Judeo-Christian way of depicting God in writing, we usually capitalize the G, right? And all pagan gods are little g. Well, what if you just capitalize everything? That's a convenient way of hiding some things, I think. Just putting it out there. Like a phoenix rising out of the ashes of death, under the sign of Saturn, Apollo, Nimrod will rise again. That Star of David has nothing to do with David. It has more to do with Saturn than anything else. The star of Remphan, that Stephen referred to in the book of Acts. Thus, the one false god, represented by many names, shall reign anew, e pluribus unum. That's what I believe the iconography is saying, that all the symbols have to harmonize with each other. That's what I believe it is saying. So, let's see if this theory is true. Interesting that Jesus gives us some warnings concerning the Antichrist in Matthew 24. He says, "If any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ," or "There, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect." Some people like to tell me, "Well, Rob, it's not going to be possible." See, it says if it's possible. I'm like, yeah. Why does Jesus, Peter, Paul, there's several places in the New Testament where you read things like, "Be not deceived. Let no man deceive you." Clearly, they're trying to warn you that it is possible for you to be deceived. Otherwise, it wouldn't tell you, like, hey, don't be deceived, right? So, yeah, I believe it is possible that the elect can and will and probably already are, in many ways, deceived. Then he says, "Behold, I have told you before." I like the way some of the other English translations say. It basically says, "I'm telling you this in advance." In other words, pay attention, I'm about to show you something really wild here. You really need to know what's going on. Because then he goes on to say some very interesting things. He says, "Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert." Where was Gilgamesh found? In the desert of Iraq. "Go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers." What secret chambers were found in 1999? The tomb of Osiris, that seems to have something to do with resurrection. And the shaft of the bottomless pit. "Believe it not." And then Jesus tells you what we should be looking for. He says, "For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." That's what we should be looking for. All right? Then he makes this statement. "For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together." That's really cryptic. Very strange. Now, some English translations and more modern ones change the eagle to vultures because they say, well, see, it's going after a dead thing, a carcass. And eagles are known as birds of prey. Yes, they do go after dead things too, but they're typically a bird of prey that goes after live things. So I think it's correct when it says eagles. Well, what's Jesus talking about there? Well, we already identified a carcass, pretty significant one that was discovered in the desert of Iraq. On the other side of the roof of the train station were two eagles. And knowing what Manly P. Hall has to say about eagles depicted in our government iconography, I'm thinking of those as two phoenixes. Look at what it says there. It says, "Let all the ends thou aimst at be, thy countries, thy gods, and truths be noble, and the nobleness that lies in other men, sleeping but never dead, will rise in majesty to meet thine own." That's awfully peculiar, especially with these glasses on. So, we are winding down our trip, and I'm just kind of wishing we could spend more time there in Washington, D.C., because I'm seeing so many things. Well, I look over and I see these two large metal eagles perched on top of poles. Oh, I got to go check that out. So we go over there to see what the eagles are looking down at. They're looking down at a very large bearded god, statue of a bearded god, coming up out of the sands of the National Harbor. And the name of this statue is called the Awakening. What in the world is this thing doing in the National Harbor? This massive bearded god statue of a bearded god coming up out of the sands of the National Harbor, and it's called the Awakening. Makes you wonder. And before I go too much farther, I'm going to ask you please not question my patriotism. Okay? I've done my time for God and country. I spent 8 years in the service, willing to lay my life down to preserve the things that this country is supposed to stand for. Okay? Please don't question my patriotism, because it really disturbs me to say some of the things that I feel like I have to say, because this is what the research is revealing to me. People ask all the time in eschatology seminars, where is America in prophecies? We're the world empire right now. Where are we? Sadly, it looks to me like we're playing on the wrong team. Because I believe we're right there in Matthew 24:28, where it says, "For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together." Where has our troops been for the last 10 years? In Babylon? And every one of our military uniforms, we are covered from head to toe with eagles, from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet. Eagles on our hats, on our patches, on our buttons. Eagles everywhere. Was Jesus looking forward prophetically in time and seeing a bunch of eagle-wearing individuals gather around a carcass? Could be. That's what it looks like to me. 72 in a red moon rising. I already mentioned that 72 is a very interesting number, and you could look it up for yourself. Just do a Google search on the number 72 or go to Wikipedia. You'll find a very long list of interesting things associated with the number 72. I don't have time to go into those things here right now, but I would like to focus on a couple of things. Obama made a very interesting statement. After his first 100 days in office, he had a kind of a press conference thing deal. It was kind of like a little meeting he had with the press. And anyway, he says, "My first 100 days were so successful that I will complete my second 100 days in 72 days. And on the 73rd day, I'm going to rest." And everybody just laughed. And I'm going, okay. Why didn't he say 63 days or like 81 days or something? Why did he pick 72? And why did he say he's going to rest on the 73rd day? Why did he even say it at all? Well, again, I ask questions. Start looking into it. President Obama's first 100 days ended on April 29th, 2009. I don't have time to go into this either, but April 29th is an interesting date. And one of the things that happened just recently was April 29th of last year is when he set the hit on Osama bin Laden, supposedly, to go get him. I believe he's been dead personally for... The mainstream news has reported Osama bin Laden dead 6 times since 2001. I mean, how many times are you going to kill a guy? I think that was all a fraud. First of all, SEAL Team 6, on the 66th anniversary of Hitler's death, on May 1st, the founding of the Illuminati, they supposedly get Osama bin Laden, shoot him through the left eye, which is the eye in the back of your dollar bill, and dump his body in the ocean. And then a few months later, the team, SEAL Team 6, all piled onto a National Guard helicopter and were killed. There's too much going on there for me to believe that that's true. But like I said, I can show you news reports. It's in my book, actually. If you look in my book, I show you actual news articles that reported Osama bin Laden dead 6 times since 2001. So something's going on there. 72 days later was July 10th, 2009. That night, Obama met with the Pope and discussed bioethics and life issues. They were talking about genetics. Interesting. The 73rd day was a Sabbath. It was a Saturday. What did he say? "And on the 73rd day I will rest." That day was July 11th, and it began a 1,260-day, a 42-month countdown to December 21st, 2012. Is that a coincidence? And I had to check those numbers a couple of times. I'm like, wait a minute. 12? Who could tell me the significance of 1260? 42 months? Can we read that somewhere like in Revelation, maybe a few times? Yeah. Awfully peculiar that Obama mentions a date that just so happens to coincide with a 1,260-day countdown to December 21st, 2012. Then in June, he goes to Cairo, Egypt, where he is hailed as the new Tutankhamun of the world. They call him the new King Tut. First of all, they call him a pharaoh. A pharaoh is somebody who is a representative of God. Ra, unfortunately, the wrong God, but they believe themselves to be the reincarnation of a god. King Tut, though, is a very peculiar pharaoh in that he was known for bringing back the worship of the old gods and ushering in the new kingdom dynasty. His father Akhenaten had instituted a monotheistic religion in Egypt, and King Tut comes along and undoes everything his dad did and ushers in the worship of the old gods once again. Could that be what Obama is doing? I don't know, but not long after that, he goes to Norway to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Whatever he did to deserve that, I have no idea. Nobody even knew who he was a couple of years prior, but all of a sudden he goes to Norway to get the Nobel Peace Prize, and this thing shows up in the night sky. Now, the news tried to tell us, oh, it was a failed missile. Does that look like a failed missile to you? No. Know what failed missiles do? They go... They don't do that! That looks like an interdimensional portal to me. and maybe some of these old gods are returning. I don't know. I don't know what the thing is, but it's awfully bizarre. Meanwhile, the Egyptian god Anubis